My story is from the age of 3. I cared for my mother and my newborn baby brother. I may have done it before that, but I have no memory of it. It's about 3 that I remember caring for my mum and my brother. My brother was a premature newborn, and my mum had severe mental health issues and substance abuse that was quite severe. And she would either be off at the dealer's house or trying to find money or whatever. And my brother and I were left home, and I looked after him, made his bottles, looked after myself, cleaned up after mum, kind of kept everything in check really. And I remember being left at home for hours and hours, and sometimes she wouldn't come back home until the next day. And sometimes I thought maybe she'd died. And I just remember being so scared. At that age, I was not aware that I could tell somebody what was going on. There was so much shame around the situation. You don't want to tell people about that, because in some ways I thought that was normal because that was my normal, but I knew it was just my normal and it wasn't normal.
I was neglected from pretty much birth. So when my dad was abusing my mum, my older brother would get taken, but I was left at home to deal with all the abuse. And if my dad wasn't taking it out on my mum, he'd take it out of me. I kind of adopted what she was doing, so I was smoking, drinking. I couldn't really gamble because I was young, so I probably would have done that too. But I started smoking at the age of 8 and drinking at the same time.
Thinking back to when being a child and going over to my friend's place, I thought it was normal, but I didn't understand this was something that was quite significantly different from what someone would say would be a normal aspect of a family.
It was never anyone important taking care of me. It was neither my mother or my father or a grandmother. It was my sister. And that's how it was for a lot of years.
As much as my mum at that time was not a great parent, I loved her with all my heart, and I wanted to still live with her, and I wanted things to be sorted out in the home. But at that age, I mean, like I didn't really know what to do about it, I guess. I just kept on going, and the main thing in my head was just survival, keep myself alive, keep my brother alive, keep my mum alive, and make sure that we're all okay.
I remember going over, and yes, their parents would be smoking, drinking a lot of alcohol, and you'd go into the house, you would see bottles of alcohol around, but in the end, I just thought that was normal.
Me and my siblings were removed from my mother's care. I was put into kinship care with my father's side of the family, and my siblings were separated. So I didn't see my brother or my 2 older sisters for a very long time. And I got removed from my father's side of the family's care because they were unable to take care of me. Substance abuse. And so then I was put back into care with my mother as well as my siblings. So we all came back to my mother, which was good at the time. You know, some people would think, but nobody really looked at if my mother was capable enough to take care of me then.
There was no such thing as playing and having fun and having imagination. It was cleaning, looking after my mum, looking after my brother, and making sure that everyone was okay and well.
I began to become more used to the situation, so it just felt normal. I'd wake up, get hit.
This is what grown-ups do. Grown-ups will drink a lot of alcohol, grown-ups smoke, grown-ups have arguments, and kids are around.
There was never really a male role model around. My mother had to take on both roles, and I respect her for that. I acknowledge that. Like, you did what any single mother would have had to do, but at a point that still wasn't enough. Through a lot of my young years, she was an alcoholic. So one of my eldest sisters had to step up to the plate and, feed us. Go out and buy the groceries for food, ask for money off family members. Oh, sis, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why isn't mum? Where's mum? What's mum doing?
I wasn't sent to school very much because of the home situation. And it wasn't until I was about 10 or 11 when we moved from a refuge into a nice place in a better area, and I got to go to school sometimes, and As I started going to school, I noticed that I was very different to the other kids, that other kids had a school uniform, they had school lunches, they had school books, they were at school every day. And I turn up with a stale piece of bread for recess and a boiled egg for lunch, no uniform, dirty, bruises, no books, and I only turn up every now and then. I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb, and that was when I began to realise that things were different at my house and things may not be okay.
Constantly moving, constantly changing schools. You know, I went to at least 7 different primary schools throughout my young childhood, about 3 different preschools, you know what I mean? As a young kid, you kind of realise like that's not a healthy thing to be constantly on the road, constantly on the move, making new friends, making new connections, new network systems. It's not what it should have been.
At the age of 11, I had a situation at home where my mum got quite violent, and a friend called me and I answered the phone and told her what was going on. The cops were called, they broke into the house, took my brother and I and took my mum away to the police station. We were interviewed and put into care.
Once I left, I was overdosing every day, just on prescribed medication. I guess that's when things started to change. People started to become more supportive of my situation. They still didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. So I had to find a psychiatrist, and once I found him, he was really, really supportive.
Taking my brother and I away from our mother was the worst thing they could have done for our family, because they split my brother and I up and we went to different homes. And we were all we had after we got taken from our mum. And my mum absolutely fell apart, and her mental illness and substance abuse got severely worse. And my brother and I started having mental health issues at quite a young age.
I started to develop really bad mental health issues that I wasn't aware of. I started acting out really anger, like my anger was probably my worst emotion that I let out a lot, and crying whilst I was angry.
I was told that I probably would drop out in year 10 and become homeless and addicted to drugs. And I didn't. I finished year 12, I went to uni, I got a job, and now I'm a mother of a beautiful 8-month-old baby boy, and I think that it makes me a good mum because I've seen the other side.
You may need some help from outside, you may need help for yourself, or you may even just need to be talking to someone that isn't part of your family, and yet you can talk to them in a way that you can be open to them.
I think the things that have happened to me have really shaped me as a person and really made me a stronger person.
Having the experience I had as a young person gives me a lot of empathy for other people. It gives me a lot of insight on how other people's lives are, to always acknowledge that somebody else is having a worse day than I am. Somebody else has had a worse life than I have.
Now, talking back to my friend's family, they say, because you were willing to come in and just be a friend to our daughter, that made the biggest difference to our family.
You need someone who's gonna be there for you, not to the sense where you end up clinging on to that forever, and it's hard because when you're being neglected by your family, that's what you look for.
There needs to be something where people come and work with the family instead of splitting the family up and saying you're a bad parent, you can't look after your children. Like, who gets to say that? Like, to judge someone's family and say that you're not good enough. Well, instead of telling me I'm not good enough, tell me what I can do better. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. What am I doing wrong? Can you please help me, instead of just saying that I'm a bad mother.
Not having any aftercare plans, any plans or thoughts on continuous ongoing support from a caseworker to do with, like, I don't know, helping my mother out on a weekly basis, talking to her with a counselling session or something like that, asking if she needs help with food vouchers and gas vouchers for the car and crap like that.
It took me a while to sit there and say, you know what, I am going to start reporting my dad. Like, when I was younger, when I did tell my counsellor, I had courage. I wanted to see how it went, obviously. I did feel upset. I was a bit, I just sent my dad to court, like, what have I done? But I think once you take that stepping stone, you can't be afraid, you can't, no fear. Obviously, you're going to feel shit and you don't know what's going to happen. But as long as you've taken that step to show initiative for yourself, only then like you'll feel more comfortable in talking about that stuff. Yeah.
Now my mother and I speak about it. She says, I acknowledge that I was not a great mother and that you did raise yourself and your brother and you looked after me and that was wrong, but you did such a good job and I'm so proud of you. And my mother and I have the greatest relationship. Like, I love her so much and she loves me so much, and to have her a part of my son's life as well, it's really exciting because I get to see her with him and see what she could have been like as a mother for me. And it's so beautiful to know that she still has, at the end of the day, she's done some wrong things, but she is a good person and she has a big heart. And it's just great to have gone through such a messy time but come out of it with this amazing, strong bond.
If I was to give a message to my young self when I was at the age where I started doing crime and doing the things that I thought was okay because of what I was going through, I'd say it is okay to do that stuff. It's alright. You have to own what you're going through and not let it define you as a person later on in life.
If I was talking to myself as a young person, as a young child, I would say you do have a say in this situation. This is your life and you're allowed to have a say. This is not the end. There is so much better.
Don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to voice yourself. You know, you're not alone. Like, it may feel that you are because it is your problem in your world, but in the bigger world, in the greater world, you're not alone. There are other people out there like you who are willing to be with you and support you just like they need your support to support them. You're not alone, and you are someone that needs to speak up. You are someone who matters and your voice matters.